Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Hire Moment Mastermind. I'm Shira Lotzar, happy to be your co-host today, joined by my colleague, Vern Schellinger. Hey, Vern. So I am a recruiter and I'm a career coach and do all kinds of things with the workforce. And Vern is a former HR executive who's also a career coach. And so we bring lots of expertise around job search, around hiring, around HR, around all these kinds of things. And so we're just delighted to have you all with us, all the new faces. We've been actually doing this since August of 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic. So we've been keeping it going for all this whole time, and we hope to do it for as long as the Lord lets us. So this is an open Q&A format. So whatever job search questions you have, we are happy to answer them. We'll be doing this for about an hour today. And as you see, this call is being recorded. And so I don't normally share this at this point, but I'll go ahead and just let you all know where you can find this recording and all the other recordings from Hire Moment Mastermind if you want to offline. So if you go to my website, purposefulhire.com, and go to the Hire Moment Mastermind tab in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see, scroll down here, and you'll see right here all the way back. Wow. All the way back, right? So you can take to your heart's desire. You can go through as much as you want. We have, of course, as you can imagine, we've covered tons of topics over these few years. And so you're welcome to avail yourself of that. Okay. So feel free to do that. And I should be posting this recording hopefully in the next, day or two. All right. So without further ado, we have a nice crowd today. Ian, good to see you. I know you'll, oh, there you are. Good. I'm so glad you could join us. All right. So again, open Q&A, any job search question that comes to mind, we're happy to answer. I mean, truly in anything. And just so you know, Vern in particular, while he's certainly knowledgeable in all kinds of areas, his particular expertise is in networking. He has a business called Contacts Count and has a whole methodology around networking and making powerful connections. In fact, I will share with you one that I was just mentioning to Vern right before we got on the call. And so Vern introduced me to a woman named Jen Hamilton, who he's known for in his own world. And I invited Jen to be a speaker last night at another community service group that I run called BoomerWorks, which is designed to empower 50+ professionals to re-career into self-employment. And she was just the most fabulous speaker. In fact, I booked her again for the end of December. And at the end of the call, she goes, "I'm just so glad that Vern introduced us." And I told that to Vern this morning. He goes, "Yeah, the power of human connection." And so networking is one of the things that we talk about all the time on this call. So incredibly important. You never know who you're going to meet. You never know who you can introduce to someone else and the connection that they could meet and the fruit that could come out of that relationship. And so always be thinking, how can you make an impact in someone's life? Who can you introduce them to? We'll be always listening for other people's needs. Who do they need to meet? What kind of resources do they need? You want to have your mental, I'm going to say Rolodex, I'm going to age myself here, but kind of this mental database, right? Of thinking about how can I make connections with other people so that their lives could be impacted, right? So I just wanted to kick that off. All right, so who has a question that Vern and I can address for you? Judah, go for it.
I will jump right in. Good morning, everybody. Nice to see you, Shira and Vern, meeting you for the first time. And just real quick up front, well, I found out about you, Shira, through Jody Rash or Dana Hirsch through the JCA, Jewish Council for the Aging. I was just graduated their Career Gateway program, which Shira did a presentation there. And they have a couple of follow-up meetings, one of which is like just overlapping the end of this meeting. So I'm going to have to leave a little bit early. It's the job club. I just want to say I'm going to cut out early, but I'm super excited about networking. That was one of the things that really, it's been, something that people talk about all the time and the importance of it. And I sort of said, yeah, okay, that sounds good. But somehow it just really has clicked for me recently. And it's exciting. And I'd love to hear Vern or anybody else's thoughts, Shira, Vern, thoughts on how to really cultivate conversations through particularly LinkedIn that are genuine without, I reconnecting with some people that I had worked with previously in the same field. I'm a web designer, web developer. and people I had been in some other training with, and really genuine good connections, really great to reconnect with them. But I'm also very mindful of not wanting to come on, I'm looking for a job and really not really wanting to broach that. And yet, really wanting to kind of know what's going on with them. So just thoughts on how to, it seems really obvious, how do I talk to people? But, in that, how do you be genuine and that there is this, so I'm very good at, I feel, really giving to other people or helping other people. But when there's something that I want to ask for, it's a little bit more challenging for me. So
it's a very normal question. Vern, do you want to address that first?
yeah.
Sure. As Shira said, the company that I had bought about a year ago and have been working to relaunch is called Contacts Count. And Contacts Count actually has 8 competencies. So what, Judah, when you speak to, how do I begin a conversation? The first competency is called adopt a positive networker identity. And everybody has a networker identity. Your networker identity might be, I hate to network. Okay. I don't like it. I'm not good at it. I have awkward conversations. That's a networker identity. It's not a great one, but it's your networker identity. What we try to get people to understand is, again, as Shira said about Jen Hamilton, the power of human connection. That's the tagline for Contacts Count. Networking is about teaching and giving. And so when you're in a conversation with someone, when there's an opportunity to teach them something about who you are, what you're all about, obviously, if you're in the job search, at some point, you want to communicate to them that you are looking for a new job, so that they know that about you. And conversely, you want to learn as much as you can about them. The more you learn about them, the greater likelihood you might help them in some way. And if you just keep that principle in mind, so Judah, to your point, one of the ways to have a genuine conversation with people is to start by thinking about it from a giving standpoint, saying, tell me a little bit about yourself. And then as you're hearing that and listening to that, is there a follow-up question you can ask? In other words, if they tell you, some work they do and you say, oh, that's interesting, my brother-in-law's in it, he told me about this, whatever comes to your mind to continue that conversation a little bit further, again, to continue to learn about them. And typically, at some point in the conversation, that person will say, so tell me a little bit about you. Okay. And that's your opportunity to say, well, here's my background. I'm currently in job transition, and here's some of the key things that I'm looking for in the job. Here's the type of, work I'm looking for. So just keeping it as simple as that. And then over time, you build a relationship, and the real power of human connection is over time, when you build a relationship and it becomes a mutually beneficial, trust-based relationship, each of you becomes advocates for one another. So Judah, if you and I were, advocates for one another, right now, if you were in job search and I knew everything about you, I'd be keeping my eyes and ears open. Anywhere I heard something that might help you in your job search, I'd be calling you, I'd be emailing you, I'd be texting you. And conversely, you would know about me and Contacts Count. You might send me a referral. You might, send people my way in terms of, I hear these people want to learn about networking. Vern's a guy you want to talk to. And then it just becomes, it just continues from that point on. You have this relationship. For the people in your past, which we call dormant relationships, somebody you haven't talked to in 5 years or 10 years or whatever it is, it really is not that hard to reconnect with them, because at one time you had a trust-based relationship, you had a mutually beneficial relationship. They knew you as a person, they knew about your character, they knew about your competence, they knew what you could do, they knew about your personality. And it's as simple as, hey, I came across your name, and you're either emailing or calling them and saying, geez, I'd love to catch up and see what's been going on in your life for the last 5 or 10 years. And I can almost guarantee you that will be an easy conversation. Very rarely will somebody say, I don't want to talk to you.
We call that the blast from the past conversation.
Yeah, yeah. So hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah. It
is.
Follow on?
I'll wait until Judah, you finish your questions or.
No, I was just saying, yeah, that is helpful. And I think the piece for me, but in conversations, I usually am asking a lot of questions, and I'm very comfortable with the first part of what you're sharing. And so it's great to, hearing that again. For me, it's the part of saying, well, here's what I am and here's my needs. It's kind of hard to, it's been a challenge up until now, perhaps to say, and this is, actually, I kind of really need a job right now. I'm looking for some work. Kind of hard for me to put out. So, but I like the way what I wanted to just reflect the way you said, this is what I'm doing now, and this is the kind of work I'm looking for. Just kind of putting it out there, not like, can you help me or anything like that. Just putting it out in a way that's just, hey, and it's kind of where I am, and just share the conversation.
Yeah. That's
People
all you
want
need
to
to
help.
do.
People want to help. I know that so many job seekers feel skittish, right? But as if you're, Oliver Twist asking for more gruel, right? Like,
Yeah, great analogy. That's a great analogy.
People want to help, don't you? If someone said to you, "Hey, I'm looking for such and such," aren't you going to think, "Oh, what can I connect them with?" Right? We're naturally wired to help one another, right? So never be ashamed of that or say, "I'm going to impose on someone." No, actually, you never know. They could be a blessing to you, right? And besides which, they might know of an organization who needs to know about you. And by you not sharing, the company's being denied the blessing of knowing you, right? So you just never know, right, how these things can work. The other side of it too is, to Vern's point about the teaching and giving, is you want to come into these conversations with relationship in mind, right? Not just your job search. Your job search is important. The relationship is important too. You really want to make it mutually beneficial. And so I would really recommend when you're looking at LinkedIn, okay, LinkedIn is just a database. It's a great database, but it's just a database. Relationship rules still apply. When you look at whoever that person is, they're going to be on some sort of relational continuum with you. All the way on one end could be somebody that you've been very close with. In fact, you probably wouldn't even need to find them on LinkedIn if you're that close to them, right? You're on texting basis, okay? But some sort of closer relationship, all the way, of course, to perfect strangers. Be thinking relationally. How would you tee up a conversation? It's not about LinkedIn. LinkedIn's just a tool. Think of it any which way. You run into somebody in the grocery store you haven't seen in 10 years. You go to a networking event and you see something. Think of it more that way, okay? So relationally, how should you approach them? So for example, I was doing a LinkedIn search for something not that long ago and ran across the profile of somebody that I had. It's actually an old client, haven't seen her in, I don't know, a few years, okay, pre-pandemic. And I'm like, "Hey, Mina," exclamation point, right? "It's been forever. Would love to truly just want to catch up." And we did the other day, and it was very lovely, right? You just, in that regard, right? Look at the relationship you already have with the person. It might have been that I haven't seen her in 15 years. I've done that too. "Hey, so-and-so, it's been literally forever. Would love to catch up." And I've had those catch up conversations. It's been like, "Wow, what's been going on?" And it's like, we don't miss a beat. Have you ever had those? You haven't talked to somebody in 15 years and it's just like that. You pick up right where you left off. Because to Vern's point, you left on good terms. You had a good relationship at the time. It just happens to be a long time since you've reconnected, but never let that stop you from reconnecting. You never know. And do it for the sake of genuine relationship, which, Judah, that's what you're looking for. I mean, I know that's how you started the conversation. Don't ever worry about that. Now, of course, the farther you get down the road to, "I don't actually know you," right? Right? A little trickier. And so that's where you want to, if that person is a second level connection to you, that's where you want to leverage the mutual first level connection. Okay. That's very important in LinkedIn. That's the beauty of LinkedIn. When you have a second level, you always have at least one first level mutual connection. You might have 5 connections. And so you can do that in different ways. Either when you reach out and make a connection with I'm going to say the second level's name is Susie. Okay. I like, my colleague says Susie Cream Cheese. Okay. So Susie Cream Cheese is your second level and you want to meet her. But then Fred is your mutual first level. You can do this one of two ways. You can either go straight in the front door, send a connection invitation to Susie, name drop Fred. You wouldn't say, hey, Fred referred me, because Fred didn't refer you. You say, hi, you and I are mutually connected through Fred. Okay, that's true. And I'd love to make a connection because it seems like we might have some mutual synergies. I was noticing your background, blah, blah, blah. And you only have 300 characters, not 300 words. 300 characters in your LinkedIn invitation to do a message. Be thoughtful about it, okay? And you can just go right in the front door now. Will Susie necessarily see your connection invitation? Maybe not, because Susie may not be on LinkedIn. You know that you probably have connection invitations that are sitting right now in your inbox and you haven't seen them. That's just very normal. So the other way you can do it, more effective, but could take longer, is you go to Fred, right? And you email Fred. Don't message Fred on LinkedIn. Again, a lot of people don't check their LinkedIn messages. Email Fred. And by the way, how do you find Fred's email? If Fred is a first level connection to you, just click on the contact info button right under his picture. And 9 times out of 10, his email is going to be there. 1 time out of 10, I just eliminated it because some people are super confidential, even with their first level contacts, but most times you're going to find that email. Email him and say, hey, Fred, I noticed on LinkedIn, you're connected to Susie Cream Cheese. This is why I want to talk to her, connect with her. Would you consider brokering an introduction? And then all he has to do is hit forward, do a quick little intro, and then hopefully, you're connected. But by the way, if you do that, if you write to Fred, say, hey, Fred, would you mind brokering an introduction and copying me on the email? When you're copied, you then have the right to respond to Susie. So he's saying, hi, Susie, please meet Judah. Okay. You're CC'd, you respond. Before even Susie doesn't even have to say anything yet. You say, hi, Susie, nice to meet you, right? Love to connect. Would you be open to connecting? And here are a few times. And that's a networking technique. Okay. Salespeople do this all the time. Offer 3 times that you're available. Never say, hey, happy to meet whenever you're free, or let me know when you're available. That will never happen. It's too overwhelming for people. They're busy. They're like, yeah, whatever. But if you say, can you meet on Tuesday at 2, Wednesday at 5, Thursday at 3, gives them 3 options to choose from. They can always say, no, none of those, but I can do this. That's fine. But it makes it concrete. Okay. But again, you follow up. Don't wait for Susie to respond. You do it first. All right, it's a really good networking technique. So hopefully that helps.
Awesome. Yes.
Yep.
Everybody else helps everybody here, I think.
Before you go, I know that Ian had a question, then we'll go to Amy.
So, I'm so new at this, as Shira knows, the whole looking for a job, because I've been in my job for a long time, former job. What is your, is it effective, or is it okay for me to reach out to recruiters who are in this space and introduce myself? I mean, how does that work? I mean, I know how recruiting works generally, but how does it work when you're the candidate or potential candidate to go to them? Are they responsive? Do they not want to be bothered?
You're talking to the right person, because I've been a recruiter for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go ahead and have a quick recruiter conversation. Okay, I'm going to answer your question, but I'm going to answer it more broadly too, because there's more to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, there's a lot of myths and misunderstandings about recruiters, what they are, who they are, what they do, right? So I'm going to just do a quick primer, and then we'll address your question in particular. So recruiters come in different shapes, sizes, and colors. You've got, first of all, what's called corporate recruiters. And the corporate recruiters work for a company. They work for Amazon. Vern used to, right? He was an HR executive. He used to recruiting for the American Bankers Association or whatever else he was with an organization, employed, W-2 salary, the whole thing. And he and other recruited for only that organization. Okay. Then you've got third-party recruiters, otherwise known as headhunters. It's okay to call us that. It's fine. And actually, the way that nomenclature came from many years ago was it was referring to hunting heads of companies. That's the term. So you call us headhunters. Some people call us placement firms, search firms. Anyway, so there's the third party. And in the third party world, you've got 2 kinds. You've got retained and contingent. Now, not that you would know or care about that per se, because that's all behind the scenes, but just so you know, a retained search firm is somebody who is paid. It's an exclusive relationship with the client. The employer is not working with any other firm on that search. They're paying the fee all the way along. It's a relationship that they have with that firm. I only mention that because a retained search firm is going to usually have fewer searches. So they're usually able to concentrate more on the searches that they have and more on the candidate experience. They typically have a deeper relationship with the employer and are able to find out more about the opportunity. And you're not competing. Like, there's no other search firms involved. So when you're working with them, meaning they're representing you to the employer, it's not like they're going to lose the client. It's not like they're going to, some other search firm is going to be presenting. It's only them. Contingent firms are not that way. Contingent firms are only paid at the end of the placement if they make the placement. So they're basically working for free until such time as they make the placement, which means a couple things. Number one, they have to have a volume of employers, a volume of clients, because they never know if they're going to make fill the placement or not. But that also means that they're going Mach 5 with their hair on fire, and they are not able to, okay, not all, everybody's different, but usually not able to get as deep into the search and the requirements. They aren't usually able to have as deep of a relationship with the candidate. And on top of which, if you're presented to the client through that recruiter, there might be other firms also present. The competition is very similar. Now, again, you're not going to know, no one's going to say, hey, I'm a contingent recruiter. But I'm just saying that depending on the experience that you have with that recruiter, it might be that they're one or the other, and you can kind of tell. It shouldn't really affect you at all, because search is the search and the interview is the interview, and just be a normal candidate. But I just want you to manage your expectations around what kind of relationship you might have with them. That's kind of a bit of a primer. Now, to your question around connecting with them, here's the deal. On the one hand, and there's totally two hands to this. On the one hand, recruiters like to have a very full LinkedIn database. Of course we do, because we want to go out there and find wonderful people. We do searches on LinkedIn all the time. We use the search bar in the upper left-hand corner, which, by the way, you all should be doing for your own search, but that's a whole other training. In fact, Judah, you've heard me do a presentation on that, right? You've got to use that database for yourself. But as a recruiter, we use it all the time. And we want to know where our people are, okay? Now, on the one hand, that means that we are generally very open to accepting LinkedIn invitations. It's very rare that a recruiter will not accept your invitation. And that said, you don't want to be reaching out to every possible recruiter. So I have to add another layer of primer here. Okay. So I mentioned contingent, corporate, fine, but there's another layer, and here it is. It has to do with the area of expertise of that recruiter. Corporate recruiters tend to be more generalist oriented than third parties. Here's what I mean. A corporate recruiter might fill just any position within the organization. I'm a tech person, or I'm a meeting planner, and whatever, because they're just a recruiter. Now, yeah, and if it's a large company, they might have certain areas of specialty, but generally speaking, they're kind of generalists. And again, they will often connect with just about whomever. On the third party side, it's a little different, because we tend to have what we call verticals. It can be an industry vertical or a career vertical. What does that mean? So some of us specialize in recruiting for an industry. Now, that I happen to be one of those. I recruit mostly, not exclusively, mostly for the association industry, association sector. Okay. So I absolutely love it when I can have as many association professionals, like in my database, in my LinkedIn, of course, because if I'm going to go do a search, in is in the business development world and associations. If I were doing a director of business development search, and in was my first level, she'd hear about that opportunity pretty quickly, right? Because I'm going to be trying to reach out and find her. But if she and I were not connected, she'd be less likely, okay, to hear about it. On the other hand, there's a million searches I don't do. I don't do software engineers for government contractors. I don't do commercial real estate executives. It's all kinds of stuff I don't do. So if somebody from those kinds of sectors were to reach out, I'd have to think twice, mostly because I'm almost maxed out on my LinkedIn connections. I have to be pretty judicious at this point, but I'm going to particularly accept people who are in my sector. So you've got people who are industry focused, and recruiters are industry focused. You also have ones that are career focused, meaning there are recruiters who specialize just in finance and accounting search, who HR search, marketing profession. There's like different kinds of fields where somebody might specialize. Please know though, there's not a recruiter for every field in every industry, usually, because it really depends on what the market is like. So for example, let's take lobbying. I know for those of you who are in the DC area, we proliferate with lobbyists, government relations professionals. Well, guess what? Yes, there are recruiters who specialize in government relations. However, a lot of employers, when they're looking for a lobbyist, there's such a big network there, they don't usually need a recruiter. So a recruiter may not go after that kind of business because they kind of do their own thing. My point though is that there has to be a market for that kind of thing. Social workers unfortunately don't make a lot of money. Employers are probably not going to pay a search fee, which is pretty expensive. So I don't even know if there is such a thing as a recruiter for social workers. There might be, but I would doubt it because I don't really think there's a market there. So depending upon what your profession is or your industry, there may or may not be a recruiter for you. So what do? How do you find that? So go to LinkedIn, go to the search bar, type in whatever your profession is. So Diana, you're public relations. So you put in public relations and then put in recruiter, or communications and recruiter. See what comes up. There could be some recruiters that specialize in your profession. You just have to play around with it. Or maybe it's your sector, commercial real estate recruiter. Now you'll definitely find technical recruiter. There are a million of those people. If you're in the tech field, that's pretty easy. Creatives, marketing, communication, there are usually a lot of search firms for that. But again, not everybody. So, and that's the long way of answering your question. Say, if you find a recruiter, and there are a number in the association industry, a number of us, not just locally in the DC area, but nationwide, 9 times out of 10, they will accept your invitation. But that's about it. They're accepting your invitation so that you're in their database. But recruiters are extremely busy, right? They don't typically have the time to do a lot of informational interviews. I mean, maybe if they're in a certain vertical and all they do is finance and accounting search and you're a finance and accounting professional, maybe they'll take the time to talk to you because it's likely that they're going to have a search. But somebody like me who's an industry person, I'm a generalist. I can place a government relations person today and a communications person tomorrow and a meeting planner on Thursday, which means that I don't have the time to have informational interviews because I'm just doing a lot besides, which I have other business practices too. I'm a career coach and stuff. So the point though is that when you try to reach out, if they accept your invitation, that's a win. That just means that you're in their database, and that's good. You can ask for an informational interview. You never know, but I wouldn't expect that they would have the time for that. Is that helpful?
Yes, thank you. And I apologize in advance. I have to leave in about 2 minutes for my dentist appointment, but thank you.
All right. Oh, Amy, you had a question.
Yeah, so mine is just kind of an add-on to Judo's. I'm going to be completely changing industries with my next job search. There are a lot of transferable skills, but I'm curious just because I know a lot of my network that I'm trying to branch out into may not have, second or first contacts. Kind of what's the best way to break into that conversation? Is it a very specific question that they can answer rather than just like, tell me about yourself, because they're not likely to, spend a lot of time with someone that they don't really know? What's kind of like the best route to go there?
I'll answer this quickly, and then Vern would love to hear your thoughts. Actually, before you even go that route, I actually would recommend that you find networking groups that are in that profession or in that sector. Plug in there first. That's a wonderful way to build relationships, okay? And to warm up the conversation. I'll give you an example. So years ago, I was doing career coaching for a woman who was in the corporate sector, and she wanted to get into the environmental nonprofit sector, which a lot of people do these days for obvious reasons, right? And so, wait, how do you so she jumped in the pool, right? There's this expression, fish where the fish are. She found a fish pond. And it was this group locally called Women in Energy and the Environment or something like that. She dove right in. She built all kinds of relationships, right? Because she said, I want to be part of your school of fish. I want to snuggle up to you, okay? And so therefore, any conversation that she had was legit because they knew by her even showing up to their group indicated her level of interest and commitment to that sector. So that's the very first thing that I would do. Go to Meetup, go in there's the association community, right, that I was mentioning. Those are membership organizations. There usually is an association for everything, truly everything. And you can see if there's a national association and if there's a local chapter. that's in the profession or the industry you want to go into. Just hang out with them, right? Go to one of their chapter meetings. And so that's, to me, the best way to warm it up is to first plug in, but then also just in general on LinkedIn, yes, you can go and do all your searching. You're right. You might not have a second level connection, but even if you don't, you can still say, write them a note and say, look, hey, so and so, I found you on LinkedIn. I am making a career pivot into the fill in the blank. Would you be open to sharing? I was very impressed with your background. Would you be open to sharing a couple of insights with me? They may say yes, they may say no, but it's by being honest and saying, I'm making a pivot, really would love to learn more about what you do. You might find a kind person who is willing to actually help you. Vern?
So everything that Shira says comes under the heading of informational interviews. Think of it, instead of you being interviewed by, an organization to get hired, you're actually interviewing other people, and all you're doing is asking them questions. As Shira said, I'm going to try to make this pivot from this career to this career. I know you've got a lot of experience in this, and could you give me some insights? What are the key skills here? Where's the industry heading? Think about your questions. Think about some questions that you want answered, need to have answered, or the other thing to do is the other types of questions. I'm thinking of making this pivot. What advice would you have for me in making this pivot? The other place where you could get informational interviews is go to your current network and simply ask them, do you know anybody who works in corporate communications, if that was where you wanted to go? And they say, oh yeah, but I have a good friend who's in corporate. Right. Could you introduce me to them? And that's even an easier informational interview, because this person is a friend of somebody that well, and they're making a warm introduction for you, and that's even easier. And as Shira said, that when you go to a networking event, so I've been a member of the society, human resources. There's a society for human resource management. So if you wanted to go into human resources, find the local chapter, pay $20, go to that networking event, and just start to ask people. And I can tell you, both from the two professional associations that I've had the most interaction with, this is Human Resources Management, and then the Association of Talent Development, Learning and Development. And all of those people are more than willing to help people, learn about that particular industry, that particular segment. Mm-hmm. It's a challenge. It's a big challenge to make that career shift, but that's a great place to start, and get that information and figure out, okay, how can what existing skills do I have that I believe are transferable, and then there might also be some gaps. I need to learn this skill. I need to get a certification. I need some other piece of knowledge to make me a more viable candidate.
And also make sure, Amy, when you're asking those questions, find out what it's really like to be that kind of professional.
Yeah.
A lot of people have, they imagine what it would be like, but don't actually know. Like, just a quick example. So somebody's great with math, right? And they decide they want to be an accountant, but don't quite know that, guess what? From January to April, you do not have a life. And there are a lot of young people early career people who burn out and don't even realize what it's going to be like from January to April to work for an accounting firm. Does that make sense? So you just want to really ask the person or multiple people, day in a life, what's it like here? What's it like in this profession? What do I need to be aware of? What are the challenges, the pitfalls? What kind of personality do I need, right? What kind of work-life balance, all those different things. So it's not just sort of a pie in the sky kind of, oh, this profession sounds great. What's it really like day to day? So just encourage you. And real quick, and then Scott, I see your hand. Can you really quickly tell us what profession or industry you're trying to shift into?
Yeah, sure. So I'm currently in nonprofit fundraising. I work for a company that does planned giving for nonprofits, and I'm looking to break into book publishing and editing.
Book publishing. Okay, great. We'll keep that in mind.
Okay.
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Scott, can we help you?
Just some obvious statement, but something that needs to be said. One very important thing about networking is people offer to help you or whatever, you need to put your information out there so that people know how to contact you and can help you.
Yeah.
So posting your information in the chat on any meetings you're on are very important.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, it's one of the most, it's the second competency of Context Count is communicate your expertise. And it's not only about communicating your expertise, it's communicating about who you are, what you're all about. And it's the competency when we're training people or coaching people that we get the most resistance, because everybody says, well, it feels like bragging to me. It feels like boasting. And that just doesn't feel right to me. But the fact of the matter is, if you don't teach the other person about who you are and what you're all about, how in the world are they going to possibly help you? So, and again, it's about communicating that in a way that's not boastful. That's not, you again, have a conversation where it's back and forth, and then you see an opportunity to tell them or share something about yourself. So
You never know who you can help, never know who can help you. You never know who other people know. Because even if you don't have a relationship, to Scott's point, just put it out there. Yeah, in the chat box, showing up at networking events, telling your next door neighbor, like just let people know what you're doing. You never know.
Yeah. And again, I would go so far as to say that if you have a really powerful network, a really open, diverse network, you may never have to look for a job again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
My point of mentioning it is there's sometimes when you offer to help somebody, people, you go to try to contact them and you realize they don't have any information out there, so you can't contact them.
Yeah.
I understand when some people just don't look at the chat, but I think everybody on here should make sure they check the chat and see if there's any messages that are directed at them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
And I guess the other thing I'd want to make sure everybody understands, about networking in general. You can have a lot of success in networking if you learn skills and behaviors and tools and strategies, but it's not a perfect world. Okay. So you could have all of the skills in the world and you try to connect with somebody and it just doesn't work, or you're turned off by them, and just move on. Because that's what will happen. It's not, if you spend the time, if you meet 10 people and 8 of them, are really helpful to you and 2 of them blew you off or, didn't respond or whatever, just let it go. Don't worry about those 2 people. So
Keep fishing.
yeah.
Keep fishing. Yeah. Karen?
Hi, my name's Karen. I am in the technology field, but I was just recently laid off in February, but this isn't my first rodeo because it happens every couple of years for me. But right now I'm getting interviews with like the talent manager, like the corporate recruiter, I guess you call them, and then it's kind of like, okay, that looks great. We have this position. I am going to pass it to my senior talent manager, and then they're going to check with the hiring manager. And then I follow up, and then just a couple times I haven't heard back. And I'm just wondering if you have any tips for building or earning respect so that they at least give you feedback or something, what you're missing. I don't know if they're just too busy. I don't know. Any insights would be helpful.
Yeah. Vern, do you want to talk about that first? And I'll try and.
Well, and this is a common question we hear on this call, and it's probably one of the most frustrating parts of the job search process. You put a lot of time and energy into applying, and you talk to the talent manager, and there's an opportunity there, and they've got your information, and so you want to move the process along as quickly as possible, obviously, and then it feels like it goes into this black hole, and a lot of times it does go into a black hole from your vantage point. What happens inside the organization is, from an internal recruiter, they might have 30 positions that they're recruiting for, all at the same time. And so, okay, I've talked to this person about, this tech job, but now I got to talk to somebody about a corporate communications job, and I got to get back to them. And it's simply, it's not. It would be nice if people had all of the resources in the world to be, on top of it and staying in touch with candidates, but they don't. They simply don't have the time. One of the things that Chair and I often recommend is, in your network, can you find somebody who could introduce you or get in touch with somebody in that company that would say, hey, I know Karen, and I know she's applied for this job, and you really ought to, you ought to really think about giving her an interview. Something like that could, again, help boost you to the top of the list, because the whole goal, as everybody knows, get to the interview. And you're not going to get a job until you get to the interview. And that's kind of the gauntlet you're going through until you can get to that interview. So.
And then when you have that interview, right, and they say, oh, we're going to this or we're going to that, life happens, right? To Vern's point, these are very busy recruiters, especially if they're a corporate recruiter. Actually, I'd say if they're contingent as well. Those are actually the two most busy recruiters that you're going to ever find. The corporate recruiters are, I mean, bless their hearts. I could never be one, honestly. I don't know how they do it. I mean, they've got pressure from the hiring managers and literally breathing down their neck. Find me the unicorn tomorrow. And they've got a lot of open requisitions, a lot of pressure, and they're trying to juggle lots and lots and lots of candidates. And life happens because they're dealing with things internally. And unfortunately, a lot of corporate recruiters don't get the respect that they deserve, frankly, from the hiring managers. They're sort of seen as like sort of pat them on the head, right? And so they're not usually able to get the time and attention of these hiring managers in the way that they want. Now, everybody's different, of course, but like as a general rule, it's they're challenged. They're really, really challenged, just the way the corporate recruiting is set up. And so they might have very good intentions, but things happen. They can't get a hold of the hiring manager or whatever the next level is. They, the person goes on vacation, the requirements change all of a sudden, and nobody let you know, but something changed behind the scenes. This unicorn candidate came in from left field, and suddenly that's a person that they're considering. An internal person showed up. I mean, it goes on and on and on, right? As to what could be happening, which might delay their response to you. On top of which they might have many, many candidates. And oh, by the way, if the position is remote, fully remote, which a lot of them are these days, the competition has gone through the roof because now they have access to candidates all over the country. It's no longer geographically based. If it's a hybrid job, the opposite rule applies. They have usually very, very few candidates, which means the competition is very thin. Okay, so just be aware of that. If you're applying for fully remote, a lot of competition. Hybrid or fully on site, it's going to be much, much lighter on the competition. But all in all, I like to say pack your patience, right? When it comes to dealing with recruiters, they mean very well. They really do. But life happens, and they're just not able to often get in touch with candidates the way that you want. How often should you follow up? Right? So I would have the first touch base. If you don't hear anything, I'd wait a week. I'd do another touch base. Haven't heard again, I'd wait a couple more weeks. Now understand that whole don't call us, we'll call you thing that we all used to hear. Well, that rule kind of applies. In other words, if you are the candidate that they want, they will track you down. They will send a care pigeon to your house. Okay. If they want you, they will.
Well, she was all over it in the beginning. Like,
right.
I mean, it was bing.
Right.
Fast.
Right.
Okay, I'll meet you. Let's meet at tomorrow or the next day.
That's
and
right.
then, so anyways,
You never know. And it could have been
a
any,
lot of balls in the air and keep pushing on it.
You push on it.
Yeah, I'll give you again a real life example, and this used to happen to me all the time. Senior vice president comes, I've just lost the VP of X or the director of X. We need to fill a position as soon as possible. Hurry up, get us candidates. And so either me or the other recruiters that work for me, we'd work night and day, screen all of these people, look at 100 resumes, get it down to 5 or 6, bring the resumes to the VP and say, here are the 5 or 6 resumes that we really think match well. take a look at these. Which 3 or 4 do you want to interview? Get back to me as soon as possible. We'll get the interview set up.
Crickets.
A week later,
Mhm.
hey, Bob, you said you
Right.
needed this position right away. I gave you the resumes a week ago. We're a week's gone by now.
Yeah.
Guess what, Bob? If we don't move quickly, some
We're
of these
going to lose the
people are getting
candidates.
jobs other places, and you won't even be able to hire them.
That's
Hurry
right.
up. Another
It
week
is-
goes by. And it would just frustrate me because I rushed and got everybody to get
Right.
candidates in front of the hiring manager. And as Shira said, life happens. Oh, we got a crisis here. We got a communication issues. We had the CEO wanted me to put on this special project, and now I don't have time to look at the resumes. Whatever the reason is. So none of which, you're blind to all of that.
Right.
You're just
I know.
sitting there.
Can I ask one more question? So in my industry, there's a lot of big conventions, and there's one now in Florida at the end of the month. I'm in Minnesota, but pretty much like my list of companies I'd like to work with will all be there. Would you try to get there if you could affordably? Would that?
Sure. Absolutely. I was just going to say, if you can afford it, that is one of the
Yeah.
best ways to network. Absolutely. If that's your target audience, if that's your fish pond, split the fish. Because that's a much warmer way of connecting with people than LinkedIn. If you can, my gosh, these days,
Right.
because people are coming back together. We couldn't do this a couple years ago, but now we can again. Oh my gosh, be there and go. And not only that, I'd be even more intentional. I'd go to look at the trade show. Are there certain sections of the trade show where where there are more companies around the kinds that you want? Because even if it's a salesperson that you're networking with, because they want to talk to you, right? You never know. That salesperson could introduce you to somebody back at headquarters, or maybe you
Right.
go to different breakout sessions where you think the right kind of people are going to be in the room. The speaker might be a good person to connect with because they often
There's
have.
a lot of them, and I know it's not
I
ideal, but
would.
I'm begging the convention people to give me a discount because
You could
it's
maybe
like
volunteer. Offer to volunteer.
$2,500 to like attend, so
I'd offer to volunteer, and they might give you a discount if you do.
that's good. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Volunteer at the
Yeah,
registration booth or whatever.
Yeah, again, the Association for Talent Development, the Society for Human Resource Management, they would always ask their members in their chapters, if you wanted to volunteer, sign people in, give them their badges, all of that stuff, you got a pretty significant discount off the, whatever the price of the conference was. Where is the conference, Karen? Do you know?
It's well, it's in Orlando area.
Okay. Orlando's, yeah. Okay.
I don't have it up on the screen, but
Okay.
it's right.
All right. But I agree with Shira. I mean, if you could get there and start to have conversations with people, and the ideal conversation is somebody says, well, we're doing this, and here's where the company's going, and these are some of the things that we're doing in the future, and then you are able to
Have the
say,
inside track.
I've worked on, projects just like that. Let me tell you about some of the, things that I've done and some of the problems I saw, some of the accomplishments we were able to create, based on that
Right.
software or whatever it is that's about. That's almost like you're actually kind of in an interview situation, but it's not.
Right. I suppose it said Gaylord Palms, Orlando, Florida, to be
Yeah.
specific.
Okay.
But
I've done
anyway,
that before. I've done that before. I've hung out in the lobby. I didn't buy a ticket to go into the convention, but I would have been around the people or stayed in a restaurant, where they would come through.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I don't think the virtual is gonna help me that much.
No.
Yeah,
As much
nothing
as
like
being there in
face-to-face.
person.
Nothing like face to face.
Okay.
If you can
Good to
afford
know.
it,
Right. I mean, it's it's got, I researched because I've seen, companies posted on LinkedIn that what booth they're at and stuff. And
Yeah.
there's a lot. Okay. Thank you.
You're
from
welcome. You're welcome.
past.
Sure. All right. Other questions? Diana, Carla?
Yeah, a very quick one, which is very similar to what we've just talking about. It's a question of next steps, and this is a follow-up to our conversation of last week when I did talk with someone in an organization and the interview went well, and he's the talent recruiter person. So afterwards, I sent him a thank you note, and I then also sent a thank you note to the VP, attaching the thank you note that I sent to him to her, mentioning that we met and it went well, etc. So she responded to me that I'm glad it went well. We'll be in touch. So that was last. Well, actually, that was Wednesday this week. I'm losing track of the time here. Today's Friday. Wednesday, I heard from her. So the question is, should I just let that sit and just let it rest there for a few days? And what would be the follow-up again? It's similar to what we've been talking about. It sounds positive, but yet, it's very.
What was the last they left it with you?
Excuse me?
The last they left it with you, what did they say?
Wednesday, when I communicated to her that it went well and reiterated my interest, et cetera, and I talked about chat GPT and, being immersed in that and how I thought that could be a contribution too, which I really do. But nevertheless, she just said, I'm so glad it went well. We'll be in touch. And that was it.
And that was this Wednesday, a few days ago, a couple days ago. Yeah, I absolutely. At this point, just let it go. Right.
Okay.
If you haven't heard back in 2 weeks, I'd say follow up.
No.
Yeah. I wouldn't press this right now. Just that you had a good meeting. Let it go. Let them noodle. Let them do what they got to do. 2 weeks to me is a good. Hey, just touch and base. Because if you did it in 1 week, it's not like they said, hey. We're going to get back to you in 2 days to schedule another interview. That's different. And if you haven't heard in a week, then, but if it's just, we'll be in touch, a week is a little bit too short. I wait. Because the fact is, again, if they want you, they will track you down. If this is the right thing. Now, yes, life could be happening and behind the scenes that could be delaying things. So a couple weeks is a good prompter. But in this case, I'd wait that long.
Okay.
Would you say anything different than that?
No, I agree. Yeah.
You got to just kind of do it delicately, right? Be sensitive.
Yeah, because I mean, the other end of the spectrum, you have a candidate emailing you every day. I'm the corporate recruiter, and I'm getting an email every day from, Shira saying, I just want, following up, and where are we at? And now it's kind of turning me on. Do I really want this person to work for our company?
Yeah. Right.
So.
Okay, well, that's great. Thank you for that input. Appreciate it. I
Absolutely.
think we used the word patience once before in this meeting.
Pack your patience. That's our little expression here.
Thank you.
For sure. All right. Other questions? Carla, anything from you?
No, I'm really just listening, gathering information, just trying to, make myself show up. So.
Anything in particular we can help you with around, you want to share just 2 seconds about what you're looking for?
I'll tell you what, I am a retired air traffic controller, and I am embarking on a new career as a life coach. So I have had a few clients that are looking for jobs, and that's put through, I have stepped into LinkedIn and then various other ways networking. So today's topic is absolutely valuable for me, just getting more information and helping people find the jobs. So it's the little corner, my little corner to help.
So couple quick things. First of all, I want to reiterate this other community service group that I run that is also free, and you might avail yourself of it. It's called Boomer Works. I put it in the chat. boomerworks.org. Okay. We have monthly educational events. In fact, we had one last night. And it's specifically for 50-plussers to re-career into self-employment. We do accept all ages, of course, but we geared toward that community. And so please avail yourself of that. Okay. The second thing though, is that when you're thinking about your business, right? I'll just kind of put this in there real quickly. Your business is going to be that much more lucrative if you go after a market that has an urgent problem for you to solve. And I have said in the past that there's a difference between career coaches and life coaches in that when people are looking for jobs, their urgency is much higher than if they're looking for a life coach. A life coach is sort of a nice to have. I want to balance my life, you know what? And so they might need one, they may not, they may not even know what it is, right? But it's a harder for a life coach to build a business than a career coach. Not saying you shouldn't be a life coach, but in terms of what people's needs are, the career side, of course, is just more urgent, frankly. And you're already seeing that because you mentioned that. So I would encourage you, if career coaching is something that you want to do in addition to life coaching, it might be a really good entree for you to look for the job seekers, right? See who you can help. And then maybe they need other things. But once they come to you for the thing that's urgent, then maybe they'll look for the things that are less urgent. That's helpful. Okay.
And just for anybody in regards to networking, I put my email in the chat. So if you want to just reach out to me and have a question about networking or want to, you know, see a little bit more about networking, feel free to reach out to me.
Yep. I'll put my email address as well in the chat. Yeah, feel free to reach out as well, and then also make sure to link in with me. Okay. Great. Any other questions we can answer before we wrap up here? Okay. So I'm going to formally end the call, but for those of you who would like to stay on, I always offer a prayer call, a short prayer call right after this call for those who are interested. For anyone else, you're certainly welcome to continue to join us week after week, as many times as you like, whenever you like. We are here, Vern and I, every Friday, 9:15 to 10:15 Eastern, and we wish everybody a blessed day.